Good morning. We're just going to give folks a moment to enter from the waiting room and connect to audio so they can hear us. As a reminder, when you are entering from the waiting room, please do remain on mute unless or until you are appearing or testifying before the board. Good morning. This is a hearing before the licensing board for the city of Boston. Today is Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman of the Board, Kathleen Joyce.
Thank you, Danny. Good morning. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Boston Licensing Board, and today I am joined by Commissioner Liam Curran and Commissioner Kiana Saxon.
Thank you. Please ensure that your audio and visuals are working properly if you plan on testifying. I will call each item in the order that it appears on this morning's agenda. I will then ask who is present on behalf of the licensee, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department, and whether there are any other individuals with firsthand personal knowledge of the alleged incident. I will then swear in all parties. After that, the police report will be read into the record, and the licensee or their representative will have the opportunity to make a brief statement, followed by questions by the chair and commissioners. Again, all testimony will be limited only to those individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident. Begin with the first item on this morning's agenda, calling item number 1, Los Arrieros Restaurant, Inc., doing business as Los Arrieros Restaurant, located at 13 to 15 Meridian Street in East Boston. Date of the incident, March 26, 2023. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. And assault on battery, employee on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Upton for the licensee. With me is owner and manager of record, Antonio Ospina, and his son, Stephen, who was not present at the incident, but will serve as a translator.
Thank you very much. Just looking to see if we can see either of them on camera. Oh, there we go. Great. Thank you for being with us. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Detective Samras is here. He's just on mute.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Detective Samaras, I am here.
Thank you very much. We do see you and hear you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand?
La mano derecha.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Solamente.
Thank you very much. Detective Samras, if you could please read the police report into the record.
About 11:28 p.m. on Sunday, 3/26/23, Officer Crespo and Hassan, assigned to the Gold 201 Frank, responded to a radio call for assault and battery in progress at 13 Meridian Street, Los Arrieros. Other assisting units, the Gold 412 Frank, Officer Burns, Gold Tango 55, Officer O'Connor. Marixa Salguero approached the officers, who stated that a Hispanic male wearing all black inappropriately touched her lower back and placed his hand inside her jeans, touching her buttocks. The male was later identified as Victor Hugo Mejia. Marixa Salguero stated she informed her partner suspect, which is Oscar Yanes, what had occurred, and he confronted Victor Mejia. Salguero stated that she and the suspect were thrown out of the establishment by security. Salguero stated while they were both being escorted out, a heavyset woman grabbed her by the hair and threw her on the ground. The woman was later identified as Sorelli Tamaro Jamilo. Salguero informed the officers that she felt pain in her shoulder due to her falling. Boise EMS A7 Albano May, Unit 4, was requested to the scene, and Salguero declined further medical attention. The officers observed Marixa Salguero to be intoxicated. The officer spoke to Victor Mejia, who stated he was unaware of what was happening, and denied touching Marixa Salguero. The officers observed Victor Mejia to be intoxicated. The officer spoke to the manager of the establishment, Antonio Ospina. Ospina stated that Marixa Salguero informed him that one of the patrons inappropriately touched her. Ospina then spoke to Victor Mejia, who denied the allegations against him. Moments later, the suspect, Oscar Yanes, began yelling and causing disturbance inside the establishment. Security then escorted him out of the premise. The officer spoke to the security guard, Sebastian Lupera. He stated that he observed a verbal altercation between the suspects, Yanes, and the victim, Victor Mejia. He then intervenes to prevent any physical altercation. Lopera observed the suspect attempting to fight the victim and was escorted out of the establishment. Lopera stated that the suspect resisted and was not compliant. Lopera stated that he used force to remove the suspect from Los Arios because he was fighting him. The officer spoke to Sorelli Tamaro Jamello. Tamario Jamello stated she observed the verbal physical altercation at the bar. She then observed the manager being pushed while the others were escorting the suspect out. Tamayo Jamello attempts to intervene. As she steps in to help, Marixa Salguero raises her hand as if she was going to hit her. Acting in self-defense, she grabbed her by the hair, and Salguero fell to the ground. Tamayo Jamello stated that she tried to help her get up, but Salguero continued yelling at her. The officer spoke to the suspect, Oscar Yanes, who stated that he was escorted out of the establishment for no reason and was assaulted by security, Sebastian Gil Lopera, when he was escorted off the premise. The suspect stated the security twisted his right thumb during the interaction. The suspect denied medical attention. The suspect stated that if the police did not arrest Victor Mejia, he would handle the matter and would hurt him. The officers also spoke to Alfredo Gomez. Gomez stated he was present during the incident. It should be noted that Officer Crespo had a hard time understanding what Gomez was saying due to the fact he was highly intoxicated. All parties involved denied medical attention. Patrol Supervisor Sergeant Matera, the Gold 907, was notified. Sergeant Matera was unable to respond to the location due to being in another priority 1 call. Detective Samaras, the Gold 837, and Detective Holder, Gold 817, were then notified and conducted a licensed premise inspection, notice code 35, citation number 022584. District detectives and officers review video footage of the incident. It was observed that Victor Mejia was on the left side of Marixa Salguero. He was standing and she was sitting on the bar stool. It should be noted that both Salguero and Mejia were very close to each other. It was observed that Mejia was resting his right arm on the chair's back support while officers reviewed the video with, where the incident occurred, bar area. It was not observed in the video that Victor Mejia inappropriately or intentionally touched Marixa Salguero. Furthermore, it was observed that Oscar Yanes approached Victor Mejia and got in his personal space and grabbed him by the jacket. Moments later, the suspect, Yanes, struck the victim on the shoulder and security intervened. At the time the officers responded, due to the fact that the video evidence of the incident did not corroborate the allegations made by Marixa Salguero, the officers did not place the victim under arrest. Due to the fact that all parties were intoxicated and the contradicting video evidence, further investigation will be conducted by district detectives. Detectives will seek additional video footage of the incident at a later date. Sergeant Coughlin, notified sexual assault unit, spoke to Detective Lewis. Detective Lewis informed of the incident. Will be further investigating with district detectives. Body 1 camera activated. We also have a supplemental I'm going to read. About 11:20, the first paragraph recaptures the whole other one. I'll start with the second paragraph. It should be noted that responding detectives William Samaras and Alvin Holder arrived on scene and performed a code 35 related to the patron of alleged employee on patron assault. Detectives responding officers viewed video footage of the incident from the cell phone of the manager, Antonio Ospina, while on scene. An interior video camera gave a clear and unobstructed view of the incident. The video showed that both Mr. Yanes and Ms. Salguero seated in the bar drinking, and Mr. Hugo Mejia standing to Ms. Salguero's left with his hand placed on Ms. Salguero's back of her chair rest. Mr. Mejia appears to be engaged in conversation with unknown male to his left and not focused on Ms. Salguero. Further video shows Ms. Salguero leaning back and making contact with Mr. Mejia's resting hand. Ms. Salguero has a very apparent reaction to this contact and was observed to be indisputably unintentional and accidental. Mr. Mejia did not make any overt motions with his hand. Ms. Salguero was then observed in an animated discussion with Mr. Yanes, who then initiates an animated conversation with Mr. Mejia. Yanes was observed grabbing Mejia by the shirt and pulling him when security, Mr. Sebastian Lopera, then intervened and stood between the two men. Video then clearly shows Mr. Yanes reaching over Lopera and striking Mr. Mejia in the chest and fighting staff violently as they tried to escort Mr. Yanes out. Detective Samaras had recovered 2 interior videos and 1 video on the front sidewalk of 13 Meridian Street. The video further depicts Mr. Yanes violently fighting staff and striking patrons not identified. The exterior video also shows Ms. Salguero fighting and striking Ms. Sorelli Tamaro Jamillo. Mr. Jamillo did not bring Ms. Sorelli to the ground, did bring Ms. Sorelli to the ground in the struggle and did appear to try to help her up. Based on witness accounts, victim accounts, and all videos recovered, I'm requesting a hearing in East Boston District Court for Oscar Yanes for assault and battery, Victor Hugo Mejia, on Victor Hugo Mejia. Further, I'm requesting a hearing in East Boston Court for Marixa Salguero for assault and battery on Sorelli Tamaro Jamillo. That concludes the reports.
Thank you, Detective. Attorney Upton, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, a couple questions for the detective, if I may. Were the ownership and staff cooperative with the police during the investigation and subsequently?
Yes, they were very cooperative.
Okay, and did they provide video as requested?
They did in a very timely manner, yes.
Thank you. No further questions. I'd just like to give a brief overview and then ask some questions of Mr. Ospina. Los Arrieros is a small Colombian restaurant. It's a one-room establishment. It's been owned and operated primarily by Mr. Ospina for the last 30 years, and he is there almost every night, and he was there this night. There are 2 allegations here. One is patron-on-patron assault and battery with a suggestion of inappropriate touching. First of all, Mr. Ospina wants to say that he takes this quite seriously. He has an all-female bartender staff, and they are vigilant about this type of activity at all times. That being said, we concur with the police report. It appears there was no inappropriate touching. There was no assault and battery. And the video that we have provided to the police and that we have provided to the board corroborates that. The second allegation is employee on patron assault and battery. As you can also see by the video, the bouncer interrupted a verbal argument between the 2 parties, the boyfriend of the alleged victim and the guy next to her who it was alleged touched her. And as he is separating them, Mr. Yanis reaches over the bouncer and tries to hit the other guy and starts a fight. The bouncer then subdues Yanis, and our contention is that this was an appropriate and measured reaction to an unforeseeable outburst by this gentleman. That is corroborated by video. And I ask, if you observe the video, you will also see right as the activity starts that the bartender immediately cleared off all of the bottles and glasses from in front of these 3 people, just because she's quite well trained to prevent any incidents or any use of possible bottles or anything that was in front of them. So that's basically the summary. I believe it is well documented in the video, which the board has in its possession. And now I'd like to ask just a couple of questions of Mr. Ospina. And he's in the center, and his son Stephen is on the left, and he'll be translating. Stephen, can you tell us what brought the police, or Antonio, can you tell us what brought the police and who called them?
¿Quién trajo la policía? ¿Quién los llamó? La policía.
El señor ofendido.
The boyfriend called the police.
So you didn't call the police because the boyfriend had already called the police when you were out there. Is that
Usted-
correct?
Usted no llamó a la policía porque él ya había llamado a la policía.
Sí.
Yes.
And how long was it between the argument starting and Sebastian, the bouncer, breaking up the fight? Or breaking up the argument, excuse me.
¿Cuánto tiempo pasó entre Sebastián interrumpiendo la pelea y el comienzo de la pelea? Por ahí, ¿cuánto tiempo?
Inmediatamente.
Immediately.
Immediately. And how long before Antonio got in there and assisted in the breakup?
¿Se demoró usted después de que Sebastián se metió?
Inmediatamente.
Immediately after him.
Immediately after him? Okay. And can you confirm with the board that you have now put up signs both in English and Spanish preventing, requesting that no one take drinks anywhere outside?
Si le puede confirmar al board de que usted ha puesto cartas diciendo en inglés y en español de que usted no puede sacar tragos del establecimiento.
Sí.
Yes.
By way of explanation for the board, this is not directly relevant to the incident, but the owners have been concerned about sort of a cultural disconnect. This is a Colombian bar. Most people are from Colombia. And in that country, you can buy your drinks and take them outside. There's no rule that you have to drink them inside. And there have been several contentious discussions lately with people saying, I bought this drink, it's mine, you can't prevent me from drinking it outside. So out of an abundance of caution, they've now put up signs saying, the law here is different and you've got to obey it and we're going to enforce it. And Mr. Ospina, can you confirm that you are now considering hiring additional bouncers if you expect a large crowd?
Que si puede confirmar que va a conseguir más seguridad si está muy ocupado el establecimiento.
Sí.
Yes.
Can you confirm that the couple who, the woman who alleged she was the victim and the boyfriend who, in our opinion, really started this activity have now been banned from the restaurant?
Que si puede confirmar que la pareja que comenzó el incidente ya está permanentemente restringida al acceso. Yes.
And the alleged person who did the touching, who ended up being the victim of the assault, is he a patron of over 20 years at the restaurant?
El individuo que fue culpado es un cliente hace más de 20 años. Yes.
And even though it appears he was not the instigator, you have warned him and said that any further involvement will result in his being banned as well?
Y aunque en el video se muestra que él no fue culpable de algún incidente, le mencionó también de que si hay futuros incidentes también lo tiene que restringir. Yes.
That's all that we have. We're glad to answer any questions from the board.
Thank you very much. We'll see if the board has any questions, starting with Chairman Joyce.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Attorney Upton, and thank you to the licensee for joining us today. The police testified that you were very cooperative. There was also testimony that there was video submitted. Attorney Upton, I don't believe we've received the video.
I submitted it to Maria Farrell late yesterday, so it may not have gotten right to you. But if that one doesn't come through, we can certainly send it again.
Thank you. Yeah, that has not made its way to us yet.
Okay, and a couple of questions for the licensee. What is the staffing model? How many security do you have, or how many staff do you have on typically?
Stephen, can you say how many bartenders and servers and how many bouncers work there?
Definitely. ¿Cuántos meseros y seguridades tienen ustedes? ¿Cuántos meseros tienen?
Una seguridad y 4 meseros.
Total, todos. Security and 4 servers.
I'm sorry, I missed how many security?
1 security and 4 servers.
Okay,
And just to be clear, this is a very small restaurant. I would say it's about 20 by 40 in one single room. Is that correct?
Yes.
and what is the capacity?
¿Cuál es la capacidad?
39.
39.
Okay, and do you believe that security guard, the one security guard, is able to check IDs, monitor monitor people's level of intoxication and communicate that you can't bring the drinks outside?
Que si usted cree que en un día ocupado usted, la persona, solo seguridad puede hacer todo lo que le corresponde a él, mantener gente sin pagos, de sacar IDs y de todas las cosas que le corresponden.
Vamos los dos.
He believes so because he is also there acting as security himself.
Okay. Oh, so the one security and 4 services does not include the manager of record?
No, it does not.
No, he's a dedicated bouncer, and I apologize for our late submission of the video, but when the board has a chance to review, you will see that both the bouncer and Antonio were in between these two people before any physical altercation started. They had just started arguing vigorously, and these guys were in between them literally seconds later.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Curran and Commissioner Saxon, do you?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
None for me, thank you.
Thank you. We'll see if we can get that video from Maria and share it with the board as soon as I do. With that, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Calling item number 2, Fuente Cleaning Services, Inc., doing business as Billaris Columbia, located at 28 Bennington Street in East Boston. Date of the incident, April 2nd, 2023, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, a bottle, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, Chapter 265, Section 15A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Morning, Mr. Green, Chair Joyce, board members, Attorney John Cannell from Upton, Connell, and Devlin for the licensee. And I believe I have a couple of witnesses here, if they could identify themselves.
Carolina González.
John Alvarez.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Oh, good. Detective William Samaras.
Thank you, Dr. Samaras. And I'm sorry, was there another representative from the Boston Police Department?
Officer Julian Velez.
Thank you very much, officer. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. Who will be reading the police report into the record?
Officer Velez.
Thank you, Officer Velez. You may please proceed.
About 1:57 a.m. on Sunday, April 2nd, 2023, Officer Velez in the Gold 411 Alpha, while conducting a Code 19, responded to a report of a fight at 17 Bennington Street, Bijadas Bar. Also on scene was the Gold 101 Alpha, Officer Forbes and Ashman, and the Alpha 910, Sergeant Downey. Upon the officer, a female stating there was someone bleeding. Officer then victim, Cartagena, who was operation. Guys,
Officer
victim-
Velez, you're coming in and out every other word or so.
oh, sorry. Is this better?
It may be,
Do you want me to start over?
if you could, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
About 1:57 a.m. on Sunday, April 2nd, 2023, Officer Velez in the Gold 411 Alpha, while conducting a Code 19, responded to a report of a fight at 17 Bennington Street, Bijadas Bar. Also on scene was the Gold 101 Alpha, Officer Forbes and Ashman, and the Alpha 910, Sergeant Downey. Upon arrival, the officer was waved down by a female stating there was someone bleeding. The officer then approached the victim, Eduardo Cartagena, who was actively bleeding from what appeared to be a laceration to the head above the eyes. The victim stated he was hit in the head with a glass bottle. The victim states while inside the bar, a group of guys were starting trouble with another female friend of the victim's. A fight then ensued and finished outside of the premise. The suspects fled upon police response, and the victim could not provide a proper description of the suspects. Officer requested EMS to the location where ambulance A7 responded with EMT and Arbor and Strunin to transport the victim to MGH for further evaluation. And Code 35 was completed.
Thank you. And we do have a supplemental as well.
Yes, I'll read that into the record, sir.
Great, thank you.
On Detective Samaras, on Monday, 4/3/23 at 21:30, Detective Samaras and Detective James went to 17 Bennington Street, Bellares, and conducted a code 35 related to a patron on patron ABDW to Whit Bottle. Detectives made contact with Bellares manager Fernie Hernandez, who assisted with the licenses that were properly displayed. Detectives then inquired about the video from the incident from the interior and the exterior of the establishment. Mr. Perenez then directed detectives to a construction project going on in the rear of the building. Detectives observed an additional unfinished structure with electrical wiring that was exposed. Mr. Perenez went to say that the construction had compromised the video system, including the time of the incident present. Further, he was trying to remedy the situation with a surveillance system. Citation number 022585 was issued by detectives.
Thank you very much. Attorney Cannell, would you like to address the alleged incident?
I have no questions for the officer. However, I'd like to ask my witness Carolina if she was there at this April 2nd incident. I believe they're on mute.
Yep, there we go.
Que yo estuve ahí en ese incidente.
Sí.
Yes.
If you could please tell the board exactly what happened that night as you observed it.
¿Usted puede decirles, por favor, a la mesa qué pasó ese día?
So, solo yo tuve una discusión verbal con una chica dentro del bar
So I had a verbal discussion with another female,
y el muchacho con el que yo estaba se puso muy agresivo,
and the guy who I was with was very aggressive,
queriéndome defender.
got very aggressive while trying to defend me.
Terminé yo en la mitad para que no se pusieran a pelear. El security lo sacó. El security lo sacó
I got in the middle so they wouldn't start a fight, and the security took him out
porque él estaba muy agresivo.
because he was very aggressive.
Y cuando estábamos afuera,
And when we were outside,
pasaban unos muchachos y él en medio de
there was a group of guys walking on the street,
estrujó a una de las personas que iba pasando,
and my friend pushed one of the guys who were walking by,
que iban saliendo de otro lugar porque no estaban.
who was coming from another different place.
Entonces ahí se pusieron a pelear
And that's when they started a fight,
y lo aporrearon a él contra uno de los parales en la cabeza.
and they pushed him against one of the side, the things that have the lights, I forgot the name of those, and hit him on his head.
All right, so you're not an employee of the licensee, correct?
Usted no trabaja allá.
No,
No,
And the people that assaulted this gentleman outside the premise, were they at any time inside the premise?
y los que le pegaron a él, ¿estuvieron alguna vez en Villares, Colombia, pues ese día?
no.
No.
Con los que empezamos el problema, ellos se
The
fueron.
one who started the problem with, they had left.
Porque uno de los muchachos con los que empezó el problema me conocía, entonces yo hablé con él y ellos se fueron.
Because one of the guys who started the problem, they knew me, and they just said, no, just let it go, and they left.
Pero mi amigo estaba muy agresivo y ni siquiera ni la esposa de él ni yo podíamos controlar.
My friend was very aggressive. Not either me or his wife can calm him down.
All right, so when he was inside the bar and a commotion started, the security escorted him out, is that correct?
Cuando hubo el problema dentro, el security lo sacó a él.
Sí.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any
Nos
further.
sacó salió el primero porque Security lo sacó. Yo salí detrás. Cuando yo salí, ya estaban en el altercado con las otras personas.
Took him out first, and then we came out because the security took him out first.
I don't have any further questions for this witness. I can make a brief statement unless the board has some questions up front.
No questions at this time. You may proceed.
Thank you. Based on the eyewitness testimony of this witness, she was inside the bar. Her friend started to cause a commotion. He was asked to leave and escorted outside the premise by security. Outside, he picked a fight with a group of people that were walking down the street. Nobody who committed the alleged assault had anything to do with this licensed premise. This was something that happened out in the street and it was not foreseeable. And we believe that in this particular instance, the licensee did what they were supposed to do. They de-escalated the situation. They brought somebody who was being belligerent outside. And unfortunately for him, his belligerence caused him to be assaulted. We respectfully argue that there is no violation here.
Thank you, Attorney Cannell. We'll see if there are any questions from the board. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions for this licensee?
I do. Is there any camera footage?
There's no camera footage as noted in the police supplemental report. This was during a time where this particular establishment was undergoing renovations for soundproofing. A significant amount of work was being done inside the premise. And as is reflected in the police report, I believe the officer confirmed that as well.
Well, I did see that. How long did this, I'm just curious, I mean, how long were the cameras down? There is a 2019 security plan that the licensee signed that said they would always have cameras available. I understand within reason that if you're having construction, but when did the construction start? How long did it last and why? And is it directly related to this particular incident?
Mr. Prentice, can you answer that question, please?
Yes. The construction went under, I think it was for like 4 to 5 weeks. And the thing is, ours is a drop ceiling. So all the wires, this is an older building, all the wires are connected and whatever goes to the cameras, the guy who was doing the electrical for the outside, for the lighting and everything, they had cut it down. I wasn't aware of it. I just knew when we came to give them, I saw that all the wires were out. And that's when I asked him. And I also was, when the officer came, I showed him, but then he came also, and you can ask him, a week after, and everything was working. All the cameras were working. Everything was working perfectly.
Cameras are working now, Fernie?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, as far as the patron that was escorted outside because of a fight that started inside, you do realize that licensees are responsible for dispersing crowds outside and for activities that occur in adjacent to the premise.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make that clear. That is part of your security agreement. It's also part of our rules and regulations. You have to act reasonably and diligently to disperse crowds to prevent something like this. So your attorney just said that that he was escorted outside. Can you describe the scene? Was he just escorted to the front door? What did security do when they escorted him outside?
Cuando usted lo sacó, this is the security. Cuando usted lo sacó a la afuera, usted solamente lo sacó afuera, ¿o qué hizo usted?
Solamente lo saqué afuera y me quedé adentro.
He took him outside and then he went back inside because there was the other guy in there to de-escalate everything.
Okay, how many security were on this night?
One, but now we have 2 securities all nights.
Okay.
And if I may, Ms. Joyce, the officer who's there, he's usually at nights. And if I can ask him, have I been cooperative and lately done perfectly dispersing everybody out from the street? I forgot the officer's name, the one that read the report.
Detective Samaras?
No, the other officer.
Oh, sorry.
I forgot his name.
Velez?
Oh, Mr. Velez, Officer Velez. Lately that you've been there, have you seen that everything's been clear? The streets every day, my security does a good job, or even if I'm there, do we clear everything out?
It's been better. The premise outside has been clearing out a little bit quicker, which is good.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon?
This was at closing time, correct?
¿A qué horas fue eso?
Ya como al cierre, ya no.
It was almost closing time, yes.
Okay, did this like arise because you were dispersing people for closing?
Que si esto se subió porque estábamos cerrando o porque fue.
Porque el lugar estaba un poco lleno y yo solamente le pedí permiso a una chica para pasar y medio la toqué y
Yes.
ella por eso se
There
puso.
was a closing time, and when I turned around to move, I pushed the other girl, and she got a little aggressive.
Okay. And how many patrons did you have? Were you at capacity?
Yes,
And it was the plan on a Saturday night going into Sunday to have only one security guard?
Yeah,
That was your choice?
yes, back then, yes, we didn't think we needed it, but we definitely, after that, we said we need two securities. So that's why we did this first one in the back of the room and then one in the front of the room. So that's why we have two securities now.
Okay, in September of last year, we had you kind of re-update and reaffirm your security plan. You remember that?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I have it in front of me right now. I'll have to review it, but did we have anything about staffing on busy nights?
I
I don't believe
don't-
I don't believe
Yeah.
in that, I think it's a 2018 agreement. I don't believe there is a minimum stated as far as security. It's obviously always based on what's foreseeable.
Yeah. Yeah, in September of 2022, we kind of referenced that and had them resubmit. Were you part of that, Attorney Cannell?
I don't remember resubmitting. I remember recently providing the 2018 agreement. It's possible. I'll have to go back and look. If there's a differently dated security agreement, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in September, we had requested one by October 14th, 2022.
It was submitted.
Okay, and why I'm asking is because dispersal, as it has been here, has been an issue and it was re-raised with the facts from September of 2022. And I'm just saying, I'm concerned, as I think the chair is, that, you know, there's only one security guard. To hear that this aggressive party was thrown out and then the security guard immediately had to basically turn his back and go back inside to deal with the rest of the people, it just seems inadequate to me. And maybe foreseeable that one security guard wouldn't have been adequate here.
Well, as you heard the licensee, they've dubbed it to 2 people. And as you've heard from the officer that in recent times anyway, it's gotten a lot better.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
No questions, just a general comment about making sure that the security footage or videos remain. So if you have any other construction in the future, just make sure that you're upfront with the contractor to say that the security cameras, you have to prioritize them. So if there's any time in which the electricity needs to be updated, or it's just that they need to be up as soon as possible.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, the board will take this matter under advisement. Calling item number 3, which concerns the same licensee, Puente Cleaning Services, Inc., doing business as Biliaris Columbia, located at 28 Bennington Street in East Boston. Date of this incident, April 29th, 2023. Assault and battery, employee on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Morning. Good morning again, Attorney John Cannell from Upton, Connell and Devlin. Good morning, Attorney Green, Chairwoman Joyce, and board members. And with me are the same people, Mr. Fernandez and Perez, and I believe also Mr. Alvarez as a witness.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Detective Samaras.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of this alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Thank you. You have all been duly sworn in. Detective Samaras, if you could please read the police report into the record.
Yes, sir. About 3:30 a.m. on Saturday, April 29th, 2023, Officer Kamel, while assigned to the A7 front desk, spoke with the walk-in victim, last name Carlson, who reported that he was assaulted by an unidentified male suspect at 28 Bennington Street, Village, Columbia. The victim further stated that the incident occurred about 1:30 a.m. in the morning. The victim continued and stated that the unidentified suspect is a security guard at the location stated above. The victim informed the officer that the unidentified male is a white Hispanic male, about 5'6" in height and a 160 in weight. The victim further stated that the unidentified suspect had stopped the victim and demanded the victim pay his bill as the victim was leaving the establishment, to which the victim replied, the identified suspect, he had paid his bill. The victim also reported that from the time a scuffle ensued where the unidentified suspect had placed the victim in a chokehold. The victim refused any medical attention at the time. The victim stated to the officer that he has a mental disability and that he needed to gather his thoughts at the time and did not think to call 911. The victim also stated that he had consumed a few alcoholic beverages. The officer informed the victim to recontact the police when he needed, and that the police report is going to be generated. I have a supplement to read into the record. Monday, 5/1/2023 at 19:30, Detective Samaras, Detective Williamson went to 28 Bennington Street, Bellares, for a code 35 response to an alleged employee on patron assault. Detective Samaras spoke to staff who put the owner manager, Mary Quintana, with a phone number on the phone with detectives. Ms. Quintana provided the name of security, John Alvarez, that was working that night and that he was familiar with the incident. Ms. Quintana refuted the victim's accusations and advised the victim had not paid his full bill and that there was no assault by the security guard. Ms. Quintana was advised to produce video on the incident and she advised that she would comply. Bellares was issued license premise inspection notice 022585 by Detective Samaras. Staff member on site, manager Alexandria Biles, signed and accepted the citation. The staff was cooperative with detectives and the permits were clearly posted.
Thank you, Detective. Attorney Cannell, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, I have no questions for the officer, but again, I would like to go back to the licensee, and I believe, is it Mr. Alvarez? Are you present?
You are currently on mute. I just asked you to unmute.
Yeah, ¿usted estaba ahí ese día?
Sí.
Yes, I was there.
All right, if you could tell the board, Mr. Alvarez, what happened that night.
Si usted le puede decir a nosotros qué pasó ese día.
Sí, claro.
¿Qué pasó? Yes, I will.
Que ingresa un señor a las 11.
At 11 p.m., there's a gentleman who comes in.
Se sienta en la barra,
He sits at the bar.
pide una cerveza,
He asks for a beer,
luego la otra.
and then he asks for the second beer.
Cuando ya le fueron a dar la cuenta, se puso agresivo.
The bartender gave him the bill, and he got aggressive.
Y entonces yo me le acerqué,
So I got next to him,
le dije que qué pasaba.
and I asked him what happened.
Y agresivo.
And he was just being aggressive.
Entonces, si sigue agresivo, va a prender la luz.
So if I told him, if you keep being aggressive, I'm gonna have to turn the lights on.
Sigue agresivo.
Y para to take you out.
Me tocó prender la luz
So I turned on the lights,
y siguió agresivo.
and he was still being aggressive.
Y entonces cuando prendí la luz, estaba como alterado, como no sé, como con un tic, no sé qué tenía.
So when I turned on the light, I saw that he had some mental, I realized that he had like some mental issue, like some problem.
Entonces, para no dar problemas, no pague la cuenta.
So to be no problems, just don't pay the bill
Y se salió.
and leave. And he's
No,
away.
se fue,
And he just left
no problem.
with no problem. He just walked out with no problem.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And Mr. Alvarez, have you been contacted by the police directly or
La
arrested?
policía lo ha contactado a usted o lo han arrestado?
No.
No.
I don't have any further questions for this witness. Chair Joyce, I would like to argue that this witness, it's pretty clear on what happened. Nothing happened. If you note from the police report that this individual showed up at the police department at 3:30 in the morning, long after this establishment had closed. He admitted to the officers that he was suffering from a mental disability and that he was also had consumed a number of alcoholic beverages. We are sad to hear of this unfortunate person's mental disability, but this had nothing to do with Bellares, Colombia. The witness, Mr. Alvarez, has not been prosecuted for anything or arrested. And this was a non-event at this premise that night.
Thank you, Attorney Cannell. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Just curious, was there any video from this evening?
That, yes, it was. And Ms. Mary Quintana sent it to the officer. I don't know who it was. So I don't know if you noted, if you know that I told you before, she's no longer with us, but she did provide the video to the officer or to somebody who requested it. She did. There was video.
Thank you.
I-
Go ahead.
I don't believe I received the video for that evening. I did make 2 requests. If she sent it to another detective, I didn't receive it myself.
Bernie? How long, I'm just curious, how long does the video, how long is it preserved before it's written over?
Mr. Brownies, it seems like you've maybe have disconnected from audio because we can't hear you.
No, okay, I'm sorry. Yes. Go ahead again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the officer said.
He said he never received the video. You may have sent it to somebody else.
Ms. Mary Quintana sent it to, because she was the one on the phone and she was the one that said, porque ese día hubo un video, ¿cierto? Sí está el video, sí. Yeah, there was a video and she sent it to whoever requested it. But that was when I wasn't here by the time, but she requested it and she sent it to somebody. I don't know who she sent it to,
Okay.
but there was video.
Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
Do you know how the video was sent? Was it sent by email?
Se lo mandó por correo, se lo mandó por texto, por texto. Or on a text.
Through a text? Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions from the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Have an excellent day.
Calling item number 4, Concord Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Bill's Bar, the Lansdowne Pub, located at 9 Lansdowne Street. Date of the incident, April 9th, 2023. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With me this morning is Anthony Chilga, an assistant manager who was on duty in the night in question. Excuse me, and I'm sorry, Katina Corapines is the Director of Risk Management for the Lions Group. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Officer Eric Albino.
Detective Fencer.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Who will be reading the police report into the record?
I can read it.
Thank you. You may please proceed.
About 1:19 a.m. on Sunday, April 9th, 2023, Officer Albino and the Delta 431 Alpha responded to a radio call for Boston EMS requesting the response of Boston Police at 9 Lansdowne Street. Upon arrival, officers were directed by Lansdowne Pub security to meet the victim, Christian Dorian, who was assaulted inside the bar. The victim stated that a fight had broken out at the bar and he attempted to break up the fight. The victim stated while doing so, he was punched by an unknown suspect, blindside punch, which caused him to fall to the floor and hit his head. The victim stated he lost consciousness. Lansdowne Pub security was able to call police and EMS to assist. Boston EMS responded to the scene. The victim declined to go to the hospital and stated he would go on his own. Boston EMS insisted he go to the hospital due to his head injury, but the victim still declined. The victim stated he had a head and knee injury. Sergeant Detective Johnson responded and conducted a license premise check, citation number 004229. And that's it.
Thank you, Officer Albino. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, is the other officer going to testify?
No, Detective Fencer, I have nothing further on this.
Okay, thank you, sir. Officer Albino, the incident, the premise inspection notice indicates that the police were called. Yes, it's checked off by whom? The manager, Anthony Chuga. Is that your memory of the incident as well, that the manager called the police?
Yes, my memory would be that someone who worked at the bar at that location did call the police.
Okay, and the box asking, did the manager cooperate with the police is checked? Yes, so were they cooperative with you and when you were there and dealing with this incident?
Yes,
Okay. And did they attend to these individuals and stand by and assist the police and the EMTs?
yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions, Madam Chair. It would appear that the licensee did everything correct. Mr. Chuga is here. He made the police call as is indicated. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have of him.
Thank you. Can you describe the scene leading up to this fight breaking out?
Absolutely. So there was I watched a man approach a couple. He wanted to speak to the female, to the young lady that the guy was with. It was clear that the guy kind of told him, no, she's with me. The guy didn't seem to like it, kind of put his hands on the guy. They began to wrestle a little bit. I ran over and I was able to grab the guy who initially went over to the couple. And as I'm walking him out, I see a guy run over and another man hits him. So as Christian Dorian was running over, a man on the side of him strikes him. Christian Dorian falls to the floor, hits his head. I'm able to pass off the guy I'm kicking out to security. I now call 911 immediately, requesting EMS, and just kind of making sure that Christian Dorian is able to, when he wakes up, make sure that I'm there to explain that he's okay, that I'll take care of him. When he does wake up, I walk him over to our back service station, kind of just out of sight. And there's where we wait for police to arrive, for the ambulance to arrive, just to make sure. I also told him he should get checked out, but he refused, as stated by the police as well. And once they did the license premise check, he said to me as well that he would go on his own. And from there, he left with a friend.
Thank you, Mr. Chuga. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon, do you?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
None from me, thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement as well.
Thank you.
Calling item number 5, K&K Restaurant Group, Inc., doing business as Estella, located at 49 Temple Place. Date of the incident, June 18th, 2023. Assault and battery on a police officer in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13D, and assault and battery patron on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Attorney Green, Chairman Joyce, members of the board. My name is Adam Barnowski, 255 State Street in Boston. With me on behalf of the licensee is Helder Brandeo. He's the owner and manager of record, and Joseph Pina, who is the operations manager and was on site the evening in question.
Great, thank you very much. I see Mr. Brandeo. I do not see Mr. DePina. Is he on camera so we can swear him in? Give him a moment to do so if he's with us. In the meantime, I will ask who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department.
Sergeant Deborah, Officer Marchand, and no present, so Lieutenant Detective Troy.
Thank you, Lieutenant Detective Troy. And I see Mr. DePina now. Thank you for being with us. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Mr. Brandeo, if you could please raise your right hand if you plan to testify.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Detective Troy. If you could please proceed with the police report.
Reading from a report authored by Officer Marchand, reads as follows. At 9:21 on Sunday, June 18, 2023, Officer Marchand and Hilton assigned to the the Alpha 102 responded to a radio call for a large fight at 49 Temple Place, Boston. Boston Police Dispatch advised officers that they were receiving multiple calls for a large fight happening on Temple Place. Several assisting units, including up to over a dozen officers from District 1 also responded. On arrival, officers observed a rowdy, belligerent crowd of approximately 50 people outside 49 Temple Place, Estella. Within the crowd, officers observed multiple people pushing each other, yelling at each other's faces, and threatening to fight other people. Officers were operating a marked Boston police cruiser with blue lights and sirens activated while pulling onto Temple Place in order to announce themselves to the crowd. On observing the crowd, officers exited their marked police cruiser and immediately approached by a black male suspect wearing a backwards baseball cap, gray jacket, black pants. The suspect, later identified as Dwayne Hardy, immediately looked at Officer Hilton and stated, "Y'all are pussies," at which point Officer Hilton advised him to leave the area. After the statement was made to Officer Hilton, Mr. Hardy then proceeded to walk directly at the officer, stating in an aggressive manner, What? At this time, Officer Marchand noticed that he was in between the police cruiser and a cement traffic barrier, which was between him and the sidewalk. Realizing that he had little chance to egress or disengage with the suspect who was still approaching him, Officer Marchand put his hands out, moving the suspect away from him. Upon the suspect moving backwards and turning away from the Officer Marchand, the suspect turned back around and swung his right arm at Officer Marchand, making contact with his arm. At this time, officers gained control of both of Mr. Hardy's arms and placed him under arrest. On placing Hardy into handcuffs, officers observed Hardy to be intoxicated and to smell of alcohol. After placing Mr. Hardy under arrest, officers requested the assistance of several other A1 officers on scene to clear away the street of the rowdy crowd, which was now in the middle of the street, in order to transport Mr. Hardy to the station. A majority of officers assigned to the district had to remain on scene for a significant period of time in order to disperse the disorderly and rowdy crowd. The Alpha 904 Sergeant Dever arrived on scene to conduct a Code 35 license premise inspection of Estella's and issue citations 4459. On arrival at the booking area, Mr. Hardy was uncooperative and made various statements. Mr. Hardy was charged with A and being a police officer in disorderly conduct. Body camera were activated at the time. That's the extent of the police report.
Thank you very much. Attorney Barnowski, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, thank you very much. A few questions for Lieutenant Detective Troy. Lieutenant Detective, do you have firsthand knowledge of the facts contained in the report?
Pardon?
Did you have any firsthand knowledge of the facts contained in the report?
No.
And the report mentioned people pushing and yelling at each other upon the arrival. Are you aware, are these the individuals that were referenced as far as the patron upon patron assault and battery?
I believe so.
Okay. And are you to your knowledge, I recognize you don't have firsthand knowledge of the incident, but do you know if any of the individuals referenced were put under arrest or question on the evening in question?
There was one individual arrested that makes mention in the police report.
And that's Mr. Hardy, correct?
Correct.
But there were no other patrons that were arrested on this date?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. And are you aware, do you have any knowledge of any facts which would support that any of the patrons that were involved, either on the patron assault or the patron on a police officer assault, do you have any facts that support that any of these individuals were patrons of Estella, the restaurant?
No, other than that they were outside Estella. It's the only establishment on the street.
And do you have any information as to whether the licensee was cooperative on the night in question?
I don't. Sergeant Dever, unfortunately, is not here today, and he would have that information.
Thank you. No more questions for the police department. I would like to address the incident briefly. As I mentioned, Mr. Brandeo and Mr. Delfina are available here to testify as needed. Mr. Brandea opened Estella in 2022. It's a minority-owned business with him and Mr. Delpina handling the day-to-day affairs of the business and operation. The ownership takes these all instances very seriously, including the matter at hand. The licensee was operating on a Sunday function at the time of the incident, which occurred on Temple Place. There is no contesting the facts that are stated within the police report. It's clear that there was a disturbance in the area on Temple Place and that the arrest occurred after the police arrived. What the board will see is that there's no nexus or relationship between what happened on Temple Place and Estella, that management and staff acted cooperatively and appropriately, and that there was the incidences were not reasonably foreseeable by the licensee. There are numerous licensed establishments at this location, including the Godfrey Hotel, Estella, George Howell Coffee, Boston Chops, and Cafe Bonjour. There's no record of any individuals involved in instances being at Estella on the night in question. The primary incident involving Mr. Hardy occurred after BPD came to the area. Nothing occurred at the licensed premises, and there's also no record of Mr. Hardy being at Estella on the date in question. The testimony today should also demonstrate that the licensee acted appropriately and was cooperative with the BPD. With that, I would like to ask my client, the licensee, a few questions. Mr. Brandeo, could you just state your name and your role for the record?
Good morning again. It's Hilda Brandeo, owner and manager, licensed manager.
And were you on site on the date in question?
I was assisting the police.
And that was and June 18th was the Sunday, is that correct?
Correct. I just want to know there was a Sunday brunch being let out by Guy's Fury, which they were doing every Sunday at that time. Their parties are let out at 8 o'clock.
And
it's the Afro Beach Sunday brunch.
Okay, thank you. And did you witness any of the fights or disruptive conduct on Temple Place that day?
No, there was no fights in our premises, only after the police came. And that's when everyone, there was like 20 cruisers who showed up or something. And that's when everyone went out, or my security made me aware that there were people acting aggressive. But a lot of it was towards the police.
And you've heard the name.
I was made aware by two. There was a fight. The last, what is it called? The Godfrey Hotel has Laz doing their, I'm having a brain fart. Their car parking valet. So there was a gentleman there who eats there all the time, came in and said that there was a fight in front of the Godfrey. I believe they were the ones who made the initial call. And then I was told by my security there was two women after a little over the station, the Orange Line. It's about 2-3 doors down from us, that there was two girls basically fighting with a guy. Where the guy wasn't fighting with them, there's two girls smacking around a guy.
And were any of the individuals that you mentioned here, or Mr. Daquan Hardy, who was referenced in the police report, were any of these individuals, to your knowledge, at Estella on the night in question?
No, we checked our records as far as any credit cards or anything like that. We don't. And any individual that was outside when the police was in, I didn't recognize, unless they were coming directly out. I didn't recognize them being at Estella's. When the police came, they came in and they agitated things. Then our crowd, it was a lot of them. Then our crowd start like seeing what's going on. Then that's when I even told the DJ stop the music and we're just gonna end the party.
And did you communicate with Boston Police?
Yeah, I was helping them out.
Can you just walk me through that a little bit? Your
The police came in, is everything okay? I believe he was the sergeant. He was a taller guy. And then I have a cousin of mine who's a police officer in that area. He came in, he spoke to my native language. Everything's all right. It was good. I actually had 3 official police officers. One was an MBTA cop in the building. I had Senator Liz in the building. Everything was perfectly fine. One of the gentlemen actually was, that's here and there. So yeah, they came in and they spoke to us. I told them everything's perfectly fine in here. He's like, do you need help clearing the crowd? I said, yeah, at this point we're ending the party. We're going to clear them out. The police never went into entire establishment. I had two security guards until the end. Two security guards come out, and then I'm sorry, I had 6 security guards inside doing their job, and then 2 of them came out to kind of help help the police clear the crowd. And then I was taking people away from the police because the way they reacted, in my opinion, they weren't de-escalating the situation; they were escalating the situation. I was taking people and just say, "Hey, look, you're just move away, just go home. There's no need to yell at them. Just go home." They do it because they were mad that they stopped the party of some sort. But so I was just getting people like, "Hey, just let's go home. Let's go home. There's no need for that." I was taking people away from the police officers, and just telling my guests to, "Hey, just go home. We want to just get home safe. There's another day," that kind of stuff. And we were cooperating with them, everything they did. And the police officer was even aggressive with me, like, "Hey, well, why the fuck isn't these people out of your building yet? I have a 2 a.m. license, as long as people are acting accordingly and they're safe, there was nothing going on in my facility. The only reason why I stopped the party was because of they sent like 20 crews there, and then all these people were acting like,
Thank you. No further questions for Mr. Brandeo.
Thank you. Anything further, Attorney Barnowski?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to questions from the board. Chairwoman Joyce, any questions?
I have a few questions. So the testimony is that inside the establishment, everything was in order and peaceful and no fighting?
There was no fighting inside whatsoever. People were having a great time. There was
Okay, so
actually no fighting until the police came. There was
Okay,
2
so
fights that we
outside
were
the
not,
establishment, excuse me, outside the establishment, the police report says it was about 50 people, a rowdy crowd. How long did it take you to become aware of that?
There was no 50 people until the police came in. There was no 50 people outside until the police came in. And it was probably, I would say, when the police showed up, I would say it was maybe a handful of people. You all have cameras on that street. I would highly recommend that you look at it.
How many security do you have working the door?
I had 6 people.
Working the door?
No, two at the door.
Okay, and do anyone that was working the door, are they with us today?
No.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to talk to them afterwards? The ones that were working the door?
Yeah, it's normal. It was a
Okay.
normal thing.
Sir, I just want to make it clear to you that as a licensee, you are responsible for the crowds outside of your licensed premise.
I'm very aware of that.
Okay, but I
We
think
don't
you're
have issues with that.
So you understand that if a crowd gathers in front of your establishment, you have a responsibility as a licensee to disperse that crowd, whether or not they are people that have come from inside your premise. You need to keep them or call the police. I'm just asking you because we had received an email where you said you didn't think you were responsible for the crowd outside your licensed premise.
I didn't say that.
Want to get on the record, you understand the rules and regulations of the board and that you need to disperse the crowd outside your licensed premise.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you.
Whether that means
I never said,
or whether that means calling the police.
I never said that was not responsibility. That's always our responsibility. I have a Sunday brunch party all the time, and we clear the crowd normal, and they go home. One to the left, one to the right.
Even if you see a fight outside, that is not the responsibility of the licensed premise, in your opinion. You should call.
I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just making sure you understand the rules and regulations of the board, sir.
I understand the rules. I understand the rules. The playbook was given to me. I read it clearly, and by an actual fellow police officer, and I understand the rule. The first time that you all were harassing me, and I understand the rule, and I clear out the entire front, past not only Estella's. I clear them beyond these train station, which is not my responsibility. And then I clear them all the way up into the jewelry store, which is not my responsibility.
Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions for the licensee?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Curran, do you have any questions?
No questions for me. Thank you.
If there are no further questions from the board, then the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 6, Diamond Rock Boston Broad Street Tenant LLC, doing business as the Hilton Boston Downtown Faneuil Hall, located at 89 Broad Street. Date of the incident, December 31st, 2022. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning again, Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. Excuse me, with me this morning is Peter Simonelli, who was present on the night in question. Good morning.
Morning, thank you very much. Who's present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Detective Hernandez.
Sorry, having trouble hearing you. Could you, one more time, could you please identify yourself? Oh, I can't tell if you were trying to.
The second officer.
You're the second officer.
Officer Nunes in Unia.
Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Who will be reading the police report into the record?
I believe that's Officer Nunes is there. He can read the initial report.
Okay, Officer Nunes, there seems to be quite a lag in your audio right now.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
There's still quite a lag happening. I wonder if you turn off your video, if we might be able to hear you better. Sometimes that works. Oh, no, not your audio. I'll ask you to unmute again.
He's frozen now, it looks like.
Lieutenant Troy, I can read the report.
Can you be better?
Yeah,
I can read
sorry.
both. I can
Officer,
read
we're still
both.
able to hear you. Thank
I'll
you.
read both. I'll read both, sir.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez.
Okay, at about, I'm gonna read from the police report that Officer Nunes wrote. At about 11:02 PM on Saturday, 12/31/2022, Officer Nunes and Brooks in the Alpha 202F responded to a radio call for a fight at 89 Broad Street, Finn Point Oyster Bar and Grill. Officers responding on scene, Gorman, Tavares, DeLeese, Kennedy, Kania, and Abreu. Upon arrival, officers observed blood on the ground at the front entrance of 89 Broad Street. Officers entered the building and observed a white male who was later identified as Charles Wooster with blood leaking from his mouth. Officers asked what had occurred tonight. Mr. Wooster stated he was talking to a girl at the bar when a white male punched him in the face one time with a closed fist. Mr. Wooster described the suspect as a white male, about 6'3", 230 pounds, bald, and no facial hair. Charles Wooster believes the suspect was a boyfriend of the woman he called beautiful. Officers requested EMS on Channel 2, Area A. Officers spoke with Ray Decker, who is the general manager of Finn Point Oyster Bar and Grill. Mr. Decker stated a physical altercation occurred outside with Mr. Wooster and another individual, which then led to a verbal dispute inside the restaurant. Mr. Decker stated that staff members separated both parties and contacted the police. Mr. Decker told officers that the person who had a confrontation with Mr. Wooster did attend the restaurant. However, the suspect used a gift card for all his payments, so they couldn't provide officers with information. EMS ambulance 1A1 Martinez and D'Amico arrived on scene. However, Mr. Wooster declined medical treatment, telling EMTs to fuck off. Mr. Wooster is a guest of the Hilton Boston Hotel, which is located in the same building as the Finn Point Oyster Bar and Grill. Officers accompanied Mr. Wooster along with his father back to their hotel room. Officers notified the Victor 923 Gallagher and Victor 815 Hernandez, who stated they would conduct a code 35 at a later date. Officers informed Mr. Decker of this. It should be noted that Mr. Wooster and his father told officers that his staff members know the suspect's identity. And then I have a supplemental report here, which I wrote on Sunday, January 1st, 2023. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD License Skirmish Unit, responded to Finn Point located 89 Broad Street to speak to staff regarding assault and battery incident that had occurred the prior evening. Detectives spoke to the person in charge, Miss Daniel O'Driscoll, who confirmed that she was aware of the incident and had been working that evening. Ms. Driscoll was informed by detectives to preserve any video surveillance of the incident. As a result of the incident, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 059775 for assault and battery, patron on patron. Ms. Driscoll signed for accepted notice. That is all.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yeah, I'm just wondering is Officer Nunez back with us? It looks like he's unfrozen anyway.
Officer Nunez, are you able to hear us?
He's still.
Yes, I can hear him.
We can hear you. There's just a significant lag.
Maybe he can turn his camera off. It might help.
Yeah, let me see. If I stop your video, can we communicate better now?
Officer Nunez, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. May I inquire of Officer Nunez? Thank you, sir. Officer, when you arrived, you observed blood at the entryway and the individual was bleeding, I believe you indicated in your report. Is that correct?
That is correct. So when we arrived on scene, before we entered the building, there was blood on the ground on the sidewalk. And when we entered the building, the victim was inside like the lobby area, bleeding.
Okay. And this just to set the scene, this is the lobby of the Boston Hilton Hotel on Broad Street. Is that correct?
That is correct, because they're attached. So when you look directly in front of the building, it's the hotel, and then to the left is the restaurant and bar. But
Correct.
they're connected.
Correct. And from when you arrived, then it would appear that whatever incident occurred had already happened. Correct? You didn't see it yourself.
No, we did not see it. We did not on-sign it. We responded, so we was only able to take statements from the parties.
Got it. And in that regard of the statements you took from the parties, did the licensee employees cooperate with you?
Yes, they was very calm. The only thing is they wasn't able to disclose like any information regarding the suspect. They was indicating that he didn't use like a debit card or anything, that he was using pretty much gift cards to make the payment at the restaurant.
Okay. And yes, sir. And that's in your report as well. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And are you aware, you are probably not, but I'm going to ask you, are you aware that subsequent to this moment in time, staff at the establishment reached out to BPD with information on the gentleman who they think was involved?
I was not aware of that. I was only able to gather the information I had on scene. Usually things after that led to like detectives and things of that nature.
Okay. And just one further question. By virtue of the blood you observed outside, would that lead you to believe that the striking of this individual happened outside?
The blood was on the floor, so you could say that. But like I said, I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't there to see or witness it. But from what I got is the victim indicated it happened in the bar when he called the woman beautiful. The staff, the manager, and at the altercation happened inside. The physical altercation, they went inside to have a verbal disagreement, is what the manager was saying.
Okay. All right. But you personally didn't observe the attack?
I did not know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, officer. I appreciate your time. If I may just inquire of Detective Hernandez. So the detective, the incident was New Year's Eve, correct?
That's what the report stated. Yes, sir.
And then you did the follow-up code 35 on the day of New Year's Day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in that context, did you interact with the employees of the establishment?
We just spoke to the manager that was on duty that day.
Okay, and did that person cooperate with you?
Yes, sir.
I don't know whether, is Detective Gallagher with us this morning?
No, sir, he couldn't make it today, sir.
Okay. As Mr. Simonelli, who's the witness for the licensee, will testify that he made diligent search of the records of the establishment and was able to determine who the individual, the assaulting individual might have been. And he reached out to and left a message for Detective Gallagher providing that information. Are you aware of that?
I am not, sir, no.
Okay, okay. But in any event, the folks you spoke to cooperated with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Madam Chair, may I inquire of Mr. Simonelli? Yes, thank you. Mr. Simonelli, you've been sworn in. Just state your name for the record and your position vis-a-vis the establishment.
Nelly operation.
And do you have personal knowledge of the incident that's been defined in the reports of Officer Nunez and Detective Hernandez?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you describe to the board what you personally observed and what you know about the events of that night and the following day?
Sure. On the night of, we're a regular evening, albeit we had 3 different couple.
Mr. Simonelli, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you?
Sorry, is this any better?
Yes, that is better.
Apologies. On the night of, it was New Year's Eve, so it was a regular business night for us. Dinner, full service restaurant, no entertainment or anything strange. We had all 3 managers on, as well as extra staffing, just to ensure that the night went along smoothly. Given the tenor of the holiday, and up until the point of the incident, it was a very standard evening. From my experience, as I experienced it in real time, I was walking through the lounge area towards the lobby door of the Hilton, which connects directly to our restaurant, when a gentleman who ended up being identified as Mr. Wooster came running in the door, bleeding, flailing, and lunging towards guests. There were a number of guests at the bar and at the High Tops. So obviously, again, being a normal evening with dinner service, this stood out. It was disconcerting. So I put myself between him and the other guests, attempted to calm him down. While he began swinging and grabbing at me while bleeding, I directed our other manager to call 911, call for police assistance, and just tried to calm Mr. Wooster down and get him into the lobby so we could speak with him. He was speaking unintelligibly and screaming and trying to grab me and hit me. And then his father came up and tried to hit me and said he's been assaulted. And I said, well, we called the police. We want to help. We will help you. You're bleeding. We got him into the lobby, and he stated that someone in the bar hit him. I had been there the entire evening, and as did my other 2 managers. We were separated, watching all portions of the restaurant. We didn't see anyone get hit. So we wanted the police to get involved and help, which is why we made that call. And the police responded very quickly. And from there, we really had no other involvement other than whatever was asked of us by the police department and the EMTs.
So from your personal knowledge, do you believe that this person was struck inside the bar or outside somewhere else?
I believe they were struck outside. I can't say that for certain. All I can tell you is that from my and my other managers' experiences who were there for the entirety of the shift, we didn't notice any commotion other than when this gentleman came running into the bar already bleeding.
Okay. And there was a discussion in the police report of the person who we believe struck Mr. Wooster paying with gift cards so that there was no credit card record. Did you do any investigation of that to determine who it might have been?
Yeah, so once the situation calmed down a bit, and he gave us a description of who he thought it may be, and we asked some other folks who he may have been pointing at during the us trying to get him into the lobby, we went and pulled receipts for that party that where they were seated, based on their table and their orders. And unfortunately, they did pay with a gift card, which doesn't have any personal information on it. So that was New Year's Eve. And I apologize, I don't remember what day of the week that is, but a day or maybe two at most later, after I had slept a little bit and had some time to myself, I began looking up what I could on what I know about this person, meaning I know kind of sort of what industry they work in. I know kind of sort of where they are from. And I just got very lucky in between LinkedIn, Google, and our open table reservation system. I was able to find a name that I believe matched. I found an image of this person on Google, and then confirmed before telling anyone with our other managers that this was the person and they were present. And that's how I was able to confirm the identity of the alleged assailant.
And with that information, what did you do vis-a-vis the Boston Police Department?
I called over to A1, I believe the non-emergency number. I have that number in my phone, and I asked to speak with the licensed premise unit, and I got Sergeant Detective Gallagher's voicemail and left him a voicemail stating who I was, where I was calling from, and my cell phone number, and said that I had an identity for the person in question. I'd be happy to provide it anytime.
And with regard to any video of the where you believe this incident happened, is there coverage outside of the building by your staff? I mean, by your camera system?
Not by us for the restaurant. The hotel has a camera that looks directly at the hotel lobby entrance. I don't believe it sees anything more than just people coming and going from the door, but I don't personally have access to that system, but I know the hotel was looking and reviewing because I believe they also received a notice from the licensed premise unit as well. But again, my understanding from the hotel, our hotel partners, was it just shows that revolving door and really nothing much else, especially outside.
But to your knowledge, did they attempt to find video?
Yes, I believe they reviewed video just as part of internal protocol anyway, because obviously as our landlord partner, we let them know there was a physical incident that occurred on that evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simonelli. The board may have some questions for you.
Of course.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Carn or Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
None for me. Thank you.
None for me either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Well,
Calling item number 7, New Well Liquors, Inc., doing business as Walsh Wine and Spirits, located at 388 Washington Street in Brighton. Date of the incident, December 9th, 2022. Service to a person under 21 years of age in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 34 to 34A, 41, 64 to 64A, and Board's Rule 1.08F. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Stephanie Boudreau from our law in Brookline, and with me is the licensed manager and owner, Nero Shretha.
Great, thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am Detective Hernandez.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify? Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. You may please proceed with the police report.
Good morning. I'll be reading a police report which I wrote on Friday, December 9th, 2022, to Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD license permission unit, monitoring the sale of alcohol to underage patrons at liquor stores. While parked across the street from Walsh's Liquor Store, 388 Washington Street, detectives observed and may later identified as Adrian Broman-Sath walk out of the liquor store with one 12-pack of Corona, four pre-mixed drink cans, and one 12-pack of Truly Seltzers. Detectives noticed this male looked young and watched him meet up with two females that were standing in front of the store. Detectives stopped the group and asked them to produce identification to confirm their ages. All three individuals immediately stated they were under 21 years of age. When detectives asked Mr. Broman-Sath how he obtained the alcohol, which detectives observed him walk out of the store with, Mr. Broman-Sath produced a fraudulent Illinois driver's license stating he was over 21 years of age. Detectives confirmed that the driver's license provided by Mr. Blumensetz were indeed fraudulent. Detectives took photographs of Mr. Blumensetz's valid Switzerland driver's license along with a fraudulent Illinois driver's license. A fraudulent driver's license was confiscated by detectives. The two females were identified as Sarah Kloss and Nina Lampert. Upon speaking to the first female, Ms. Kloss provided detectives with her New Jersey driver's license stated she was under 21 years of age. Detectives were able to confirm that Ms. Kloss did have a valid New Jersey driver's license. The second female, Ms. Lampert, provided detectives with her Florida driver's license stated she was also under 21 years of age. Detectives were able to confirm that Ms. Lampert did have a valid Florida driver's license. Mr. Blumensetz, Ms. Kloss, and Ms. Lampert will be summoned to court for persons under 21 in possession of alcohol. Mr. Blumensetz will also be summoned to court for forged misuse of an R&B document as a result of what Detective Observed. Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 059985 to Walsh's Liquor Store for sale of alcohol to persons under 21 years of age. A person in charge, Mr. Sugati Chetri, signed for an acceptance notice. That's all.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Attorney Boudreaux, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Thank you. Before getting started with testimony, I just would like to note that this violation predated two subsequent violation notices that the licensee received on December 20th and February 10th, and the hearings on said notices. And this predated the updated processes the licenses has since put into place to address underage minors as per the operational memo that was submitted and that was later amended after the informational hearing that we all attended. Also, as it relates to this particular violation, because no hearing was scheduled, Mr. Shrestha did believe that it was resulted in a warning, that this notice really resulted in a warning. And that's why it wasn't addressed in the previous two hearings. So just briefly, you've been sworn in, could you state your name for the record?
Yeah, Needle Shrestha, owner and manager.
Okay. And what processes did you have at the time in place to prevent sales of alcohol to underage?
That time we just checked the ID and visible check. It's not seems like under 21.
Okay. And were you working on the night of the incident in question?
No.
And who was working?
My employee Saga Chetri.
And how long had he been there?
He worked like another liquor store for a long time, but in my store he worked for 1 year.
Okay. And were you aware whether he had experience with dealing with fake IDs and underage?
Yeah,
minors?
I think he do so.
Okay. And had he been trained by you?
Yes.
And what happened once you found out that Mr. Chetri sold alcohol to minors?
So after that, I took action and I just terminated him.
You terminated his
Yeah.
employment?
Yeah.
And you were able to find somebody else to work with you?
Yeah, I worked myself for 1 month. Yeah, I didn't find anyone. So now after that, I found the employee and I trained him how to check ID, everything.
Okay. And since that time, have you updated the processes used by the store to prevent the sale to underage minors?
Yeah, after that, I changed a couple of another ID scanner. It doesn't work well. So finally, I got the Intelcheck ID. So since there, I have that ID and it's work properly.
Okay. And we submitted an operational memo on May 9th, 2023, and laid out several steps that the licensee was going to take to prevent these kind of incidents from happening. Have you implemented all of these steps?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I would just end by saying the owner takes this and the other incidences very seriously, and that with the preventative processes that he's since put in place, we believe these incidences have been substantially reduced, and we would ask that the board take no action on this violation. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Boudreaux, and thank you, Mr. Shrestha. Chairman Joyce, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Carr, Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
None from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling item number 8, Bleacher Bar LLC, doing business as Bleacher Bar located at 82A Lansdowne Street. Date of the incident, January 2nd, 2023, overcrowding, 220 on mechanical count, 198 capacity in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Boards Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. Who's present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning again, Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With me this morning, Katina Corapines, the risk manager, who's already been sworn in, Gabriella Wooten, who signed for the inspection notice on the night in question, and Corvington Dumont, employees of the establishment. Good morning.
Morning, thank you very much. Who's present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am, sir.
Thank you. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, you may please proceed with the police report.
Morning again. I'll be reading from a police report written by Sergeant Detective Gallagher on 1/2 of 2023 at about 1:16 p.m. Lieutenant Detective Adrian Troy, Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez assigned to the licensed premise unit conducted a license and premise inspection of the Bleacher Bar at 82 Lansdowne Street before the Winter Classic at Fenway Park. As detectives entered the premise, they asked the doorman as to the count. The doorman replied 198. The capacity of the Bleacher Bar is 198. Thinking that the premise had exceeded its occupational load, detectives conducted a mechanical count of the premise, which resulted in 220 persons. This was relayed to the manager, Gabby Wooten, who stated that she would bring the premise into compliance. As a result of what was observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued a license premise inspection notice 059787 to the Bleacher Bar for overcrowding, 220 found on mechanical count, 198 capacity, and Ms. Gabby Wooten signed for and accepted the notice.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
If I may, thank you, Detective Hernandez, thank you. This was the Winter Classic, busy day throughout the Fenway area, of course. Was there a line outside when you arrived?
I don't believe there was, sir.
Because Ms. Wooten, who was there, would indicate to me that they had a line the entire day, just for purposes of trying to keep an accurate count because of the busy nature of the day. Was the street crowded?
The street was very crowded. I don't know if any people on the street were part of the line. It didn't appear to us that they were, but you know,
multiple establishments up and down the street, and
yeah, it's a very busy day.
a very busy day. But and Ms. Wooten was with us this morning. She signed the inspection notice, and you indicated she was cooperative. Did they do everything they could once you brought this to their attention to cooperate and clear the space and get into compliance?
Yes, sir, they did.
Okay. I have no further questions of the detective. I just would simply indicate that this was an extremely busy day on the street, as the board is well aware. And according to staff, they had a line the entire day. Ms. Wooten is here and can speak to that for just this purpose of attempting to keep in compliance. The number which was given to the officers of 198, of course, is the capacity of the establishment. They have indicated to me that their staff were informed to keep a lower number on their door counts for just this reason. And as a result, they now have these clickers kept at 190 so that they are more substantially under that count, so that they have some leeway for just this kind of circumstance. I don't believe that this establishment has any such violations. It is a popular establishment, but I don't believe they have any such violations. They were cooperative. They understand that they have to stay within their capacity, and hopefully this new setting of a lower number will help us stay in that within the proper capacity. And I just would like to ask Ms. Wooten, you've been sworn. Would you just tell the board what your position is with the establishment?
I'm the general manager of Bleacher Bar on Fenway Park.
Okay, and you were on duty on the day in question. You signed the violation notice?
Yes,
Okay. And excuse me, was there a line, to your knowledge, was there a line when the officers arrived?
yes,
Okay, and had you kept a line throughout the day?
yes.
Okay, and this was a very busy day, I presume.
Yeah, extremely busy. The entire street was completely packed. We had a line from the beginning towards the very end of the Winter Classic.
Okay. And when the police officers came in and informed you that they took a count that was over capacity, did you follow their lead and reduce the capacity to their satisfaction?
Yes,
Okay, and subsequently, have you and other managers, Mr. Demond and Ms. Corpines and others in the Lions Group, spoken to your staff about what steps to take to try to keep the capacity at or where it's supposed to be?
yes, including keeping the counter at 190 from now on.
Okay, all right. And have you had any issues since then?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you, ma'am. The board may have some questions for you.
Thank you. Chairwoman Joyce, any questions?
Thank you, Danny. I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Carn or Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
No questions for me. Thank you.
None for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement.
Thank you.
Calling item number 9, ATG Inc. doing business as Cleary's located at 331 to 335 Columbus Ave, date of the incident March 7th, 2023. Service of more than 2 alcohol drinks to one patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. And an expired ISD certificate posted with an expiration date of September 19th, 2020 in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64 and Board's Rule 1.02B. Who's present on behalf of the licensee?
Sheldon Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am, sir.
Thank you very much. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, if you could please proceed with the police report.
Good morning, sir. I'll be reading from the police report, which I wrote on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023, signed Detective Lone Gallon, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD License Premise Unit, conducted a license inspection of Cleary's located at 331 Columbus Avenue in Boston. While standing in the bar area of the establishment, detectives observed a bartender provide a patron with 12 shots of tequila. The patron then walked away from the bar and went over to a table of patrons. Then upon reviewing the licenses, certificates and permits of the establishment, detectives observed that there was no current inspectional services department certificate posted. The one that was there was from 9/19 of 2020, and no current City of Boston entertainment license. The one displayed was expired at 12/31 of 2022. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Patrick Duncan. Mr. Duncan immediately took corrective action and spoke to the staff member in question. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 060175 for service of more than 2 drinks to one patron at one time. This is a prohibited practice in violation of the Mass Law 204 CMR 4 Section B. For no current ISD certificate posted and no current City of Boston entertainment license posted. Mr. Duncan signed for and accepted the notice.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Mr. Cohen, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, the serving of the drinks, it was a table of patrons that was being taken care of by a waitress. She finished her shift while they were still there and cashed them out. So the bartender knew that the person was all together with them. And that's why she served him the 12 shots. However, we know and realize that this is not okay. And we've actually spoken to her, retrained, and let the entire staff at Cleary's know that just because you know where it's going, it's still 2 drinks per person, as opposed to the waitress is bringing them to the table. As far as the licenses go, we were held up with the ISD license was being held up because we couldn't get an inspector out. I have all the current stuff that came shortly thereafter, and as soon as the ISD permit came through, all the other ones followed within a day.
Thank you for that, Mr. Cohen. We'll turn it over to the board to see if there are any questions. Chairwoman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Mr. Sheldon, do you know how many people were in this party?
I wasn't on site at the time. The managers at Cleary's along with the police report say 12 and they all concur with that. It was one big group, one big table.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon?
Just to be clear, that was the drink order made at the table with the waitress?
No, the waitress had been waiting on them for a period of time, but the waitress's shift finished, the party stayed. It was in the same room where the bartender could clearly, see, was in close proximity to the bar. So after the waitress left, they were coming to the bar themselves for service.
Okay.
The bartender served that person the 12 drinks knowing it was going to the table, but we understand and agree that it's not okay, and she's been spoken to about it and we retrained.
All right, I just want to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
No questions, just even with your ISD, if in the future you don't have the ISD inspector hasn't come out yet, you can always have the receipt ready and able to be shown.
That's what we have. I have a copy of that with the receipt in the bill.
Thank you for that. If there are no further questions from the board will take this matter under advisement as well.
Okay, thank
That
you.
concludes the license premise inspection portion of this morning's hearing. The board will take a quick 5-minute recess and then continue with the remaining item for an informational hearing in 5 minutes. We will pause the video and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. We will now move on to the remaining item of this morning's agenda, item number 10. This is an informational hearing. This is not a disciplinary hearing. The purpose of this informational hearing is for the board to gather necessary information regarding the operation of this licensed premise. The licensee is 154 Maverick LLC, doing business as Maverick House Tavern, located at 154 Maverick Street in East Boston. It's a mandatory informational hearing regarding the potential non-use of the license, ownership and beneficial interest in the licensee entity, manager of record of the licensee entity, and oversight and control of the day-to-day operations of the licensee entity pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Sections 12, 15A, 23, 26, 64, and 77. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Upton for the licensee, and with me is John Tyler, the principal owner of the licensee entity, the manager of record, and the principal owner of the building. I would like to note for the record that Mr. Tyler lives in the apartment above the restaurant and has at all times while the license has been in action, and he's been the manager. So he is literally 10 feet away from the licensed premises at all times.
Thank you, Attorney Upton. Thank you, Mr. Tyler, for being with us. I'll also ask, are there any other individuals with us this morning who plan on testifying regarding the operation of this licensee entity? Yep, if you could please identify yourselves.
Melissa Morganite, also the owner of 154 Maverick LLC and 50% owner of the resident of the building at 154 Maverick Street, East Boston.
Thank you. And I'm not, if you could also please
Claudia.
identify yourself, who raised your hand.
Yeah, Claudia Sierra. I am the previous tenant that was recently locked out by Mr. Tyler.
Thank you all. And just before we begin, if you could all please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And before we begin to hear from Attorney Upton's opening statement and from the testifiers this morning, Chairman Joyce, do you have any remarks to frame this hearing?
Thank you, Danny. I will try. We call this informational hearing today because this is a restricted license at this location, and the licensee has not been open and operating for nearly a year. The last time we formally heard from the licensee was last September, when they asked the board for permission to close temporarily to refresh and rebrand their concept. Since then, we have heard anecdotes about other restaurants potentially planning to open and operate here. We even received a police report about one of those potential operators being locked out. And I see she's here with us today, but we have heard nothing from the licensee themselves. We have been down this road before with this licensee, where we have held similar informational hearings to determine what is happening at this licensed premise and who is in control. It's still unclear to me as chair of the board exactly what's going on here. It's in the best interest of the board and the public to see this license put to good and proper use and I intend to use this hearing today to gather the information I need to determine what is happening at the premise and whether it's serving the purpose of a neighborhood restricted license. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. We'll turn over to the licensee, Attorney Upton. Is there anything you would like to say to the board at the outset?
Thank you, Attorney Green. I'd also like to mention that joining us is Scott Adams, who is the corporate and litigation attorney for the licensee. If it pleases the board, I can give a brief chronological overview of what's been going on. I will state for the outset, at no time has Mr. Tyler not been the manager of record. At no time has he not lived on the premise, and at no time has he not exercised dominion and control over the license and the license premise. That being said, I think the board is familiar with some of the history, so I'll give an outline, and we're certainly glad to answer any questions if my description leads to any gaps or questions or other issues. As the board is aware, this entity licensee was the subject of a contested divorce. It was also the subject of an agreement with a contract manager named Mr. Lyons, which was entered into at the initiation of Mr. Tyler's ex-wife, which was clearly not compliant with board or state regulations. We spent considerable time trying to unwind that scenario. Negotiations with the contract manager, Dan Lyons, to get him back into compliance failed. He was evicted. It is alleged that he then broke in to the premises and assaulted Mr. Tyler. After his involvement was terminated, Mr. Tyler attempted to run the operation by himself, but because of loss of staff and COVID, they closed.
Attorney Upton, I hate to interrupt you, but can you go over that again? Can you repeat that part, like summarize that for me?
Okay.
Who tried to break in and all that stuff?
Yes, Mr. Lyons
Okay,
was operating the restaurant
okay,
under a consulting contract and purported purchase agreement initiated by John's ex-wife, who's here today. And we struggled for some time to try to get him into compliance, to file a change of beneficial interest, to file as the manager, to comply with a wide variety of rules, regulations, and standard business practices for a restaurant. Those negotiations failed. He attempted to initiate litigation, but also attempted what appears to be self-help to break in to the restaurant, retrieve furnitures and fixtures, which he asserted were his, and assault Mr. Tyler, all of which is captured on video and documented in police reports.
thank you.
Following that, Mr. Tyler wanted to run the restaurant by himself, but because of COVID and staffing issues and everything, closed. So that brings us to our notification of approximately September 2022. Following that, Mr. Tyler engaged with a broker to try to get another operator to help him run the restaurant. He was contacted by a partnership of Claudia Sierra, John Ortiz, and Andres Yaramillo. They made a provisional decision to move forward under a letter of intent. As negotiations were proceeding, Mr. Tyler, who lives upstairs, as we said, discovered that the potential tenant had already taken down interior walls without permission or permits, and that the work had damaged the sprinkler pipes. This was subsequent to September 2022. The LLC run by Mr. Tyler was then informed by Ms. Sierra that she and Mr. Ortiz had removed one of the partners who was a key part of their partnership from the partnership, and that they would be rebranding. The partner who was removed then informed Mr. Tyler that the partnership owed him $40,000 and took some of his tools and fixtures. The LLC later learned that Ms. Sierra had failed to pay some subcontractors doing renovations. And they discovered that the principal funding she promised for this operation was from overseas sources and was not documented. So in a meeting with Claudia Sierra, the LLC, Mr. Tyler informed her that her failure to make the payments and her dispute with Andres Yaramillo was an impediment to future relations. And as a result of her incompetent renovation work, failure to pay contractors, partnership breakup, and misrepresentations regarding renovations and financing, the LLC ended that relationship. So that takes us into earlier this year. Soon after that, Mr. Yaramillo, the terminated partner for Mrs. Sierra, came back to John Tyler and said he operates 3 established restaurants. He has good experience, and he would like to move forward himself, opening a restaurant with a Latin menu appropriate for the neighborhood. He's currently the operator of Perros Paisas in 2 locations, as well as a food truck, and he is a CV licensee under a CV issued by this board. So we felt that he would be qualified and appropriate. So work is progressing on schedule to have Mr. Yaramillo as a consultant to open a restaurant in early September. Finally, it appears that this place is on track. We have sent some photographs to the board of the substantial renovations, and which should demonstrate how near to completion and operation it is. And once Mr. Yaramillo establishes himself as a qualified operator consulting to run this show, we may seek to include him as under a management agreement to further codify the relationship. But we can also tell you that Mr. Tyler hosted a meeting for community leaders and stakeholders last week. At that meeting were representatives from Representative Madaro's office, City Councilor Coletta's office, from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, the community supervisor, from the police department, a representative from Senator Edwards' office, and a representative from East Boston Main Streets. So they were all given a tour, description, and outline of the proposed restaurant, and everyone seemed pleased with the direction it's going. So after a contested divorce, litigation, harassment, potential assault, and sketchy business practices, it looks like Mr. Tyler is now on track to open a restaurant in September. So that is our outline. We're certainly glad to answer any questions or delve into any further details.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for Attorney Upton and Mr. Tyler, or would the board like to hear from Ms. Morganite and Ms. Sierra first?
I have some questions, and please bear with me. This is very confusing. My questions are first for Claudia. What was your understanding when you were told that there was an opportunity to have a restaurant at this location? Did you think you were, with this letter of intent, buying a liquor license?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The understanding of our involvement with the restaurant was exactly what the flyer from the Boston Restaurant Group says, that it was a lease of a licensed premises with a full liquor license and a live music entertainment license. It also said that I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look at this. This was the Maverick House Tavern was available in a prominent location, and this was a popular neighborhood pub. It listed the capacity, and it also directed to send some information. So when we spoke with Mr. Tyler, he offered us a lease for 5 years with the option to extend it to 10 years. At no point at the beginning of the negotiations, Mr. Tyler told us that we were going to be his managers. We were not interested in working for Mr. Tyler. And then after
you understood that he would be your manager, or you would be his manager, or how was that?
No, that was not the understanding. The understanding was always, and he had always referred to us as tenants, and as our payments of $8,100 a month, he always referred them as rent. So at no point we had any indications that we were going to be working for Mr. Taylor. As time progressed, after we gave him a significant amount of money, his attorney sent us some documents that were certainly not a lease, not an occupancy agreement. They were a management agreement, and they were a consulting agreement. And constantly, Mr. Taylor told us, we don't want to embarrass the board. The board is aware that we are using these documents for you as a manager, but you cannot disclose that you are the owner of this restaurant, and you cannot disclose the address. So we worked and improved his restaurant significantly.
Madam Chair, I have to object to this testimony.
Why? I'm curious as to what her relationship was with Mr. Tyler.
First of all,
It goes towards how this was being managed and organized in the ownership of the license.
it certainly does, but it contains multiple falsehoods and omissions, including the fact that she was represented by counsel during this process, who
fine.
reviewed the
Attorney
occupancy
Upton,
agreement.
Attorney Upton, I'm going to ask you to hold on a second. I want to hear more from Claudia.
Fair enough.
Yes. So as time progressed, yes, we entered this agreement. It was originally just John Ortiz and I. And when Andres Jaramillo, who is a person that I have helped with his current businesses, I have done all his licenses. I sat with him in several locations for his lottery, for the food truck, etc., including helping him with the neighborhood process and the community process for his beer wine license for his current business. When he learned that John Ortiz and I were potentially going to be tenants at this location, he automatically asked us to allow him to join. Then his request was that John Ortiz was removed or worked as a manager. And I told him that, it was John and I's, venture. If he wanted to come onto the partnership, that was fine, but none of us were going to leave because he wanted to enter.
So, Claudia, so this was all before you entered into the agreement?
Yes. Yes.
So you knew going into the agreement that he, according to you, disputed by his attorney, that he told you that this wasn't allowed?
That was not allowed.
This arrangement wasn't allowed? He didn't want you to embarrass the board because you were supposed to be a tenant?
That was after.
Okay.
That was after we gave him $48,600 for deposit, almost $6,000 in liquor license and entertainment license reimbursement. That was about, probably, I have the text messages.
What was the $48,000 supposed to be for? A deposit for rent?
According to the LOI that his attorneys drafted, it was a 6 months rent subject to review, $20,000 immediately as good faith, non-refundable earns money, and the balance of $28,600 due on or before Thursday, November 10th. The balance to be refundable should the license process be not satisfactory to the city of Boston or the ABCC, or if the parties are unable to come to final agreement of all matters. And to this date, we have not seen a dime. I want to clarify that Andres failed to invest the same amount of money we invested. Andres failed to show up. Andres was always arguing with us, however, was meeting secretly with John Tyler. the first $20,000 that he provided to, that we provided to Mr. Tyler, Andres gave them directly to Mr. Tyler. It didn't come from our business account. It came from Andres's business, Pero Spices, which was given, was given directly to John Tyler. Then John Ortiz and I pay the remainder of the deposit that he requested, the $28,600, as well as the reimbursement for the liquor license and the reimbursement for the entertainment license and the health permit. Andres went on vacations for over a month. He was rushing us to sign an agreement that our attorney had advised us not to sign until he felt comfortable. Unfortunately, Mr. Tyler's attorney, Scott Adams, was not responsive for a lot of the times that our attorney contacted him. And this dragged for 6 months.
Who was your
We were
attorney? Who was your attorney?
Our attorney was Fred Tanous.
What's his name?
Fred
Okay.
Tanous,
TAN.
NOUS.
Okay.
Then when Andres returned in January, he asked us why we hadn't signed the agreement. We told him that there was this agreement did not protect us at all, that this didn't say that we were tenants. In fact, it was 2 agreements, not 1. Andres was pressuring us to sign the agreement. We had agreed that I was gonna be the spokesperson between the 3 of us. Andres does not speak English. I understand Mr. Taylor doesn't speak Spanish either. However, Andres approached Mr. Taylor a few times, and we had a conversation with Andres about being careful about what he said, because of our attorney said that the agreement was not even close to being an agreeable agreement, something to be signed.
Okay.
Andres became abusive, verbally abusive, name calling, stopped showing up. And then we had to get an independent attorney, Miss Miriam Cicero, who speaks Spanish, and sat with the 3 of us. And he admitted in front of her that he had no interest in being part of our partnership. The following day, Andres sent us a text to a group chat and said that he was voluntarily leaving. However, within the same week, he went to the city of Boston, the Office of Economic Development, and complained about me, lied and said that I was harassing him and that I was threatening him. And Mr. Ronald Ellie from this office provided him a free attorney to go after us for the money. Most of the money, it was not 40,000, it was like 34,000. $20,000 he had given to John Tyler.
Madam Chair, may I be heard?
I want to ask you to hold on a second, Claudia. Andrew, Attorney Upton, are you responding to what she's saying now?
Well, I would just like to question the relevance of this extensive description of internecine business operations between the potential management company. I'm
Because
not
it
sure this is
sounds like
relevant.
to me that Mr. Tyler was shopping around a license, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what was going on. I think you've been riding this wave too, attorney. This is very confusing. Bear with us. We're taking time out today to try to figure this out. Claudia, I'm going to ask you to stop there for a minute. I'm going to ask the other commissioners if they have any questions based upon what you said so far. This is completely confusing and not straightforward. So I appreciate everyone bearing with us as we try to unravel this. Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions for Claudia up to this point, or for Attorney Upton up to regarding what he's shared with us so far?
I guess for Attorney Upton, just as a foundational matter at this moment, what is the status of any court cases going on right now?
I am not aware of the status of any of the disputes between Claudia and her former partners. We're not involved in that.
Okay, what about the divorce and all that? Is that at a final stage or?
I don't believe so, but I think Attorney Adams might be able to say with more specificity.
Okay,
Yeah, if I could speak to that issue, I'm Attorney Scott Adams. I'm the attorney for the LLC. I am not John's attorney.
yep,
So at the current time, we have probate proceedings concerning John Tyler and Melissa Tyler are continuing. There is an application to the SJC for further review. There are.
and so that's for further review. What's the what is
they have been.
what's the decision that's being appealed?
The divorce itself is not being appealed. What is what has been at issue is a asset allocation pursuant to the divorce. So that
Regarding the
issue,
business.
ownership is being disputed and is going, or at least an application has been sent to the SJC for further appellate review.
Okay. I'm sorry, is that decision in force right now or is it being held pursuant to the application?
There are no proceedings scheduled right now on that. The parties are engaged in a forensic accounting to resolve some financial issues concerning the assets owned by the parties and by the LLC.
Okay, so what is your best understanding today as to who is operating the LLC today?
Under a judgment and findings of the Superior Court, John Tyler is the controlling manager of the LLC, and that has been sustained by the probate court.
Okay.
There are 3 cases in the business litigation session involving the parties.
Okay.
Again, these are primarily ownership issues of assets and allocations of financial issues. As to, well, that's the current state of litigation.
Okay.
This litigation has been going on since 2016. The Superior Court litigation since 2018. So it is honestly a bit of a mess.
Yeah, we're somewhat aware of that, I think. Attorney Upton, you're here today on behalf of John Tyler individually?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can tell you that I submitted the Superior Court to the Superior Court decision to the board some time ago.
Yeah.
Which I think Scott can confirm that John Tyler has 89% of the LLC and is in control, and Melissa Tyler.
I do recall that, but I was trying to what we're still at, obviously there's an application for further appellate review, so we're not quite to the very end of that situation, but as of right now, our best understanding is that decision is in force.
Yes.
To interrupt.
I just have if you don't mind holding on, Ms. Morganite, I want to ask Commissioner Saxon if she has any questions.
Yeah, obviously this is quite a mess, but Claudia, I'm just trying to follow your narrative. When did you give any money for in pursuant to this agreement?
Okay, so on November 10th, 2022, we, John Ortiz and I gave John Tyler a check for $28,600. And in the same week, probably a week later, I gave him a check for over $5,000 for the liquor license reimbursement and for the entertainment license, as well as the health license. Then we started to pay rent of $8,100 a month until the day he locked us out.
Okay, and so in November, had you already had a signed agreement?
No, we signed a letter of intent that I have provided to Mr. Green.
Okay, thank you.
And there was never any lease, as Ms. Sierra just said. There was never any lease. There was only a contemplated management agreement that was in negotiation based on the LOI, just like any other management agreement where an operator operates on behalf of a licensee.
I never said we signed a lease.
But just to clarify, there never was any lease. No lease was offered, negotiated, or signed.
But there was money accepted.
Yes, plenty. If I may continue, I want to address that, you know, Mr. Upton says that we evicted Andres. Andres voluntarily left the LLC and then started sabotaging our operation, threatened us several times.
Can I
that
ask,
he-
Claudia, I'm going to go back for a second. I'm just trying to stay
Yes.
focused on a couple other things.
Okay.
I want to ask Attorney Upton first. What is the plan here? Is Mr. Tyler planning on operating a restaurant here? And what will his role be?
He will be the manager of record. He will be the licensee. The restaurant could be open in the next few weeks with Andres Yaramillo as the operator. I've sent the board some progress photos showing that it's very close to being ready. If Mr. Tyler is understandably gun shy about dealing with anyone in the restaurant industry at this point, but if things progress appropriately, he's perfectly happy to transfer the manager of record responsibility to Mr. Yaramillo and to enter into a management agreement so the flow of funds can be compliant if there's revenue from alcohol.
But nothing's been filed with us yet. So a September opening seems a bit of a stretch. We don't have any sort of management agreement, DBA change or anything like that.
If I could speak on that issue.
Go ahead.
Attorney Scott Adams. So we did initially with Mr. Yaramillo a letter of intent as to what we anticipated. His initial function would be as a consultant for the rebranding and refurbishment of the facilities. That is the agreement that we're operating under. So he's not, I mean, effectively, he would be there to make sure the rebranding and everything goes accordingly. And in that sense, managing the employees and things like that, since he has the experience, the restaurant experience to do that. But it is not the management agreement that Andrew Upton is referring to that we would be operating at this time when the restaurant opens. It will be opened as an entity owned by 154 LLC, who the manager of the LLC is John Tyler. John Tyler is also the manager of record on the license. The LLC recognizes that it is ultimately liable and responsible for all aspects of its operation and management. This is not an attempt to push this off onto anybody, such as Mr. Yaramillo. But in order to get this up and off the ground, it seems he is the best one to do that. As to the money that was paid by Ms. Sierra, we are holding funds that were paid to us. We have claims on that money from third parties. The proper procedure would be for us to pay that into court, notify the parties that the money is there, and they can fight in court as to who has claim to that money, because we are not going to decide whether Claudia Sierra or Mr. Yaramillo has a right to the money that was paid by an LLC in which the two of them were members. We can't make that decision legally. So we put the money into court. The court decides who actually has a right to it, and the court just makes that decision.
Have
That
these parties been added to litigation?
No litigation has been started yet, because this is the first time. I have spoken to Ms. Sierra's lawyers, two lawyers before. I've advised them that that may be the best solution for us, but I have not had response from her attorneys. I've not spoken to her directly, since that would be a prohibited communication. if we're at this stage, then I think probably we would have to trigger that after speaking to her attorneys. I don't know who her current attorney is at this point. But that would be the solution as to this claim of money and to who has rights to that money.
Does the board have any remaining questions for attorneys Upton, Adams, Mr. Tyler, or Ms. Sierra? Before I realize we have not yet heard from the remaining witness, Ms. Morganite. So I'm going to give the board to ask any additional questions before we move to additional testimony.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Morganite, thank you for being here this morning, this afternoon now. Was there any additional testimony you wanted to provide to the board regarding the operation of this licensed entity?
I would like to make it clear that the probate court has ordered the 154 Maverick LLC divided 50-50. Superior Court issued John Tyler the manager only in the court orders that were filed with you. And it states clearly that the probate court is best to divide the assets. We are still in litigation over all of this. Mr. Tyler keeps appealing it. So we're still at a 50-50 split. As Adam said, that there's a forensic accountant has been involved because of the money issues and management issues. There also has been an order between the parties that the building is going to be sold. Mr. Tyler actually put it up for sale earlier this year. This is a mess, and my attorneys have been locked out by Upton and Adams. They do not seem to be sharing information with us about what's going on. This hearing was news to me. About
I just want to put on the record that this particular license has no dollar value attached to it. It is worth $0 on the market.
I believe that that's correct, but I was operating a restaurant with Dan Lyons. He and I were business partners. Dan Lyons was locked out with bicycle chains across the locks, and all of his equipment and the cafe equipment was locked inside the premise at that time. He was completely cut out of his livelihood. He was not evicted with an eviction letter, to the best of my knowledge. This mishandling of the license is coming to me in drips and drabs. I have asked this board multiple times to please keep me informed of what was going on. And fortunately, Danny Green did send me a notification that there was going to be a hearing on this. I am just, police reports, it's crazy what's been happening. And money transferring and the license, how much money has this new entity given?
Thank you for your comments. I don't have any questions for you. I don't know if Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon have any questions for you.
If it would help the board at all, I can provide a listing and status of the litigations that are at issue to kind of explain some of these points and how collateral litigation is intruded into this issue, which should not be the case. And if the court would like further information on the litigation, I can provide that. Or at least Andrew Upton.
I would appreciate a status update of the various litigation going on. I'm not sure how it will all relate to the license at hand, but I will take a look at it. I'm just concerned. I'm looking for more information at this point about what is going to happen at this location with this license, what Mr. Tyler's involvement will going to be, and what is a realistic time frame. I'm not quite sure Andrew Upton's time frame of September is realistic. So if there's anything else you want to add as to that, it would be helpful.
As I understand it, right now, that it's finalizing some construction issues, and I believe there is an issue of obtaining the final insurance coverage that are really the impediments at this point. And the insurance coverage has to do with finishing the renovations and But other than that, I believe everything is pretty much in place.
Any further questions from the board at this time for any of the various parties who have provided testimony this afternoon? I do see, Ms. Sierra, your hand is raised. I'll call on you.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that Mr. Taylor did not notify us that we were going to be evicted or terminated. We had a meeting with him on April 4th regarding our concern about the agreement, the occupancy agreement not being ready. He asked us to help him pass the building inspection that he had failed within that same week. After we did and finish our renovations, Andres is doing a paint over what we did. The bulk of the work, we did it. And we were locked out without any notice. 5 or 6 days after paying the April rent. And it's been 4 months. We had to file a police report. We hadn't had our belongings returned or our deposits returned. And Mr. Taylor said he was gonna make, he appointed the director of East Boston Main Street as the middle person for us to pick up our belongings. And from the restaurant specifically, when we got there, they were thrown outside of the restaurant. They're damaged, incomplete. We salvaged a few things from there and we had to leave everything else because we did not bring any of our stuff in that stage. And, you know, just want to clarify that we, the debtors that Mr. Adams says have been the companies that we had to hire in order to run a restaurant, the payroll company, the cable company, etc., who have reached out to Mr. Taylor, who sent me an intimidated message, copying me saying that he will assist the companies to with his attorneys to pursue me for payment of a few dollars, not even $1,000 each. But these were companies that we had to break contracts with because Mr. Taylor locked us out.
Okay, I think a lot of this that you're discussing, Claudia, is something that really should be brought to court. We're not a court of law.
We are.
We're a regulatory authority, so we wouldn't be able to opine or help at all in any way like that. So
yeah, I am concerned that he keeps taking money from tenants. I am 99.9% sure Andres is clueless about what's happening. And I was just responding on the accusations from Mr. Adams and Mr. Upton, which are only he said, she said statements. They're not facts.
Okay. Attorney
Thank you,
Upton, go ahead, Danny.
I was going to say, thank you, Ms. Sierra. I'm just going to ask if the board has any final questions about just the operation of this licensed premise. And then I want to give Attorney Upton a chance to give any closing remarks about the status and the plans for this license. Attorney Upton, floor is yours.
Thank you. I think the chair summarized appropriately the business disputes of Ms. Sierra and her partners, whether or not she has claims against John Tyler, are completely irrelevant to this proceeding. There was no rent ever paid or requested. She has no rights in the license. She never impacted his compliance as a licensee one way or another. Melissa Tyler is in a lawsuit with her former business partner, as well as numerous lawsuits against John. You know, I resent the implication that I locked anyone out of information. I have not heard from any lawyer from Melissa Tyler in several years. But I recognize this is not about my feelings. It's about compliance. And the goal here is to use the license to involve the community, and John Tyler has taken the appropriate steps. He met with every single elected official and the police last week, as well as East Boston Main Streets. The place is close to ready to open. It is entirely appropriate for him to hire someone as a consultant to help him run the restaurant, as long as the consultant does not get revenue from alcohol service. That consulting agreement is compliant and in place. And moving forward, you know, should he decide that this is a good fit, we will talk to Andres about becoming the manager, obtaining a beneficial interest under a management agreement, and those applications would be filed timely. Right now, he is well within his rights to hire an operator consultant as the licensee and licensee owner, and that's what he plans to do. We're happy to answer any further questions or discuss in any more detail, and we appreciate the board's time on this, and we apologize for how long it's taken.
Thank you, Attorney Upton. Final comments, Ms. Morgan, I do see your hand is raised, so we want to recognize that.
I'm concerned because I was given paperwork from John Tyler and his attorneys that there was rent paid for the cafe during this time that Ms. Sierra was involved. So I don't know why they're saying there was no rent. It was reported to me that there was rent. Again, there was a letter of intent that was sent to my attorneys for the new tenant, and I would only receive the signature page. I was not given the 2 other pages, so I do not know what their intentions are with this new tenant. Again, I just see.
Well, then I suggest you address that with your attorney and not with this board.
I think the board needs to know that there's a lot of gray area going on here, Mr. Upton, and you seem to provide a lot of it.
Excuse me, we are aware there's a lot of gray area, so I'm going to ask you to wrap up with your final comments. Do you have anything more to add?
That was it for me. I just wanted you to be aware that there was rent received from Ms. Sierra and that there is a letter of intent, what we weren't given 2 pages of.
There was no rent, there is no lease.
Thank you. I'll ask one final time if there are any further questions from the board. Thank you. The board has a lot to consider, and the board will take this all under advisement. These are all of the items before the board today, and that will adjourn this afternoon's hearing. Thank you, everybody, and please do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.